Abba-dabby dude! Hello, this is Abba-dabby dude. Welcome back. And today's vlog is just an update. It's been 2 years, believe it or not. So this is the 2-year update. If you've watched last year's 1-year update, you'll know roughly what to expect. But I'm just going to go through what the last year of ownership has been like, and I won't go too much depth on the first year because that's available in the last video, but it's kind of included in the overview of what it's been like to own an I-Pace for 2 years, basically. We've not done very many miles this year, it has to be said. Last year, the first year, I did just under 10,000 miles. It's something like 9,995 miles or something, I think, from memory. This year, a lot less. My current mileage is sitting at 14,961 miles. So I've basically done 5,000 miles in a year, which is nothing really. The reasons for that, pretty obvious. We've not been allowed to go anywhere. We've not been allowed to do anything for a year, pretty much. So hence the reason the mileage is so low. Some of you may not be aware, but I'm a key worker, which is why there are 5,000 miles at all, because I'm still doing my daily commute. So what's happened in the last year? Well, not so much in the last year, but right at the end of the first year, so before I really had fully assessed it, I had a couple of updates done to the car. I had the H264 range update, which I'd had a little bit of time with when I did that last video, but now I've had a full year with that update. That was the one that improved the range of the car. Had a whole raft of other improvements, but everybody calls it the range update. I think even Jaguar refer to it as the range update. But basically, it improved the range of the car, and tweaked a few other things at the same time as well. And it's definitely made a noticeable improvement. In winter, I'm regularly getting 210 miles of range, maybe 220 on a good day, but definitely 210 miles. And I've always said that 200 miles in the winter, and I would be happy with that. Well, it's comfortably in 200 miles in the winter. And last summer, I was getting about 240 on average. I was getting 240 to 245 on a full charge. And on one particular occasion, I was actually getting 275 miles of range reported. But that was a bit of an unusual situation. But normally, in most days, I was getting, let's say, a comfortable 240 miles. So that's a lot of driving between stops, and I'm very, very happy with that. Especially bearing in mind I have the 22-inch wheels, which are, they're the worst for range. So if I'm getting that on 22-inch wheels, people on the 18-inch wheels are comfortably going to be getting well in excess of 250 miles anyway. I would reckon you should be able to be getting 250, 255, 260, somewhere in that range on the smaller wheels in summer. And in winter, you should be able to get 220 to 230, I would guess. Their guess is based on my experience with the 22-inch wheels, but knowing what they do to range, those smaller wheels should now be getting those kind of ranges, which are very, very close to the American EPA range. Still below the WLTP range, but that's a function of the WLTP test. Unfortunately, pretty much every car fails to make its WLTP results in the real world. But to get above the EPA result is pretty impressive. I'm quite happy with that. So yeah, those two updates, the H264, sorry, that was the H264. Also had the H280, which was the charging update, which I hoped would fix Charge Place Scotland, but as you know, it didn't. But on the plus side, I've been in touch with Evo, and they've found a fix to the chargers which should improve the compatibility. They were also having problems with Tesla Model 3, and I believe the Audi e-tron with those eVolt compact chargers, which are the older ones, not the newer options. But they're all over Scotland, those older compact chargers. But eVolt have found a fix. It is a wiring fix, but it improves the handshake process and basically makes the charger, I don't know if it's less picky or more picky. I think it must be less picky, but it makes it makes the handshake process more consistent and more reliable. So they are rolling that out across the chargers. I presume there'll be some element of cost to it. I'm not sure. So, you know, it'll be down to the hosts getting the upgrade, presumably paying for the upgrade, who knows. But also, in addition, there's an extra factor to be included, which is a lot of those compacts are getting towards the end of their life now. I mean, some of them are 10 years old. So they're approaching their end of life phase anyway. So they may not get the update on the basis that they'll shortly be getting replaced. In addition, there are options rolling out all around the country. They've given me some details, but there's basically new options going in around the west coast and various places around Scotland. So the reliance on the compacts will become less. Some of the compacts, no idea how many, will get that wiring upgrade, and then of course some of them will be replaced as they get towards end of life. So all in all, although the software update to the car didn't improve the situation, it looks like things are progressing. I'm finding it much easier anyway. As more and more options come online, I'm finding it a lot easier to plan trips without relying on compacts. The west coast of Scotland's still a bit of an issue, but as I say, there are new options coming which should resolve a lot of those holes in coverage, so we say. So yeah, I mean, that's sort of an update of what's going on in I-Pace world, I guess. But it was nice to get confirmation as well that charging problem wasn't exclusively an I-Pace issue. As I say, they were having it with Tesla Model 3s, I believe Audi e-trons. I haven't heard about Mercedes EQCs, to be honest. Don't know about that one way or the other. And I've heard a few reports of the newer BMW i3s suffering with it, but that's very anecdotal. But definitely Tesla Model 3s, I-Paces, and Audi e-trons. So hopefully that rollout is going to fix that issue for all of us. So what's happened in the last year? Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a much quicker video than the first one. Partly there's less to talk about, if I'm honest, because the second year was more of the same, really, in terms of the first year. Oops, sorry. In terms, you know, it was pretty similar. So a lot of the stuff I won't bother repeating. Also, the low mileage and low usage means that I've probably had less to report. And also, it's a bit of a non-event video. I'm filming it here in my driveway because we're still locked down. So where last year's was a nice scenic drive around the Scottish coastline, this one's a stationary video on my driveway, so there won't be scenery to enjoy as well along the way. But anyway, that's pretty much the summary of what's news and what developments there have been this year. Also a few infotainment updates, but nothing too dramatic to write home about. And hopefully you've seen some of my videos on those updates. I did one for each individual update. If you haven't, go and check them out. But yeah, it's nice to see that the software is still being supported though. What faults have I experienced over the last 12 months? Well, there are two that are not specific to the car. I drove over a horrendous pothole last year. Actually, no, I think this might have been included in the last video. Was this before the last video? The 1 year update? I think it might have been. Anyway, if it was, ignore this. But yeah, I had a tyre replaced. Basically went over a pothole, developed a big egg-sized bulge in the sidewall of the tyre. So I had that replaced. But actually, now I'm thinking about it, that might have been in the first year. So please, if you've already heard me say that in the first video, it's pretty bad that I can't remember that, but that might not be for this year. There's also a big scratch on one of the doors. I had no awareness of it happening, but I think it was on a late night drive down a country road, and I'm guessing that there was a protruding branch that scratched down the side of the car. Not 100% sure on that, because I didn't even hear it, which I would have thought I would have done. But anyway, there was a big scratch on the side of the car. That was very easy to fix because of my paint protection film. So they just peeled that off, put on a new panel of, or a new layer of paint protection film on that particular panel, and off I went. So the paint protection did its job. The scratch didn't get through to the paintwork at all. So the car itself was undamaged, and just the PPF needed replaced on that section on the passenger door, front passenger door. Now, things that happened for my service, which I've had, which were addressed in the service, there's little air deflectors in front of the rear wheels. They look a bit like mud flaps, but they're actually air deflectors, and they help shape the airflow around the rear wheels to reduce drag from the rear wheels. Anyway, the one on the left hand side of the car, the passenger side of the car, just disappeared. It actually worked loose during the first part of lockdown last year, when everyone was closed, including the car dealerships. I couldn't have it looked at, and it had come loose, and it had kind of swiveled round, so it was kind of dragging against the tyre. So I just swiveled it back and shoved it back in. But then at some point it just fell out completely and disappeared. So that needed replacing. And I'm having an issue with the 360 camera. I've had a few other people report the same thing. It went in. Basically what's happening is the cameras aren't lining up correctly on the stitched 360 view. So like if I park alongside a curb, like in this shot here, you can see that the curb goes nicely down the side of the car, but at the front of the car, it doesn't stitch in properly. It's not correctly aligned, and it's got it going down sort of the middle of the car. The curb runs down the middle of the car, which is not ideal. Had that looked at in the service. They did some work, but it's still doing the same thing, so I'm going to have to get them to look at that again, which is a little disappointing. Now, when it was in for the service, they came up with some fault codes in the log, which they thought may indicate a problem with the main traction battery pack, which was a bit of a worry. So they did loads of tests. They were sending the test results off to Jaguar, who were sending back things for them to try, and then send back more tests, more results. But basically, after all of that, it transpired that there was a fault in the 12-volt battery. So they've replaced the 12-volt battery, and that seems to have resolved whatever fault codes there were. There was no major faults showing up on my side, prior to taking the car in. So it was something that they detected in the service and fixed before it became an issue for me, which was nice. So all of that, the whole service, with Jaguar prices, bear in mind, was, well, it would have been £197, but I have a platinum card from that dealership because I bought the car from them, which gives me money off. So my service ended up being £177, which I think is phenomenal for a main dealer Jaguar service, considering it gets done once every 2 years. 177 quid is practically nothing. So I was very happy with that. And the work that I've mentioned above, that was before, that was all done under warranty. So none of those repairs, if you like, cost me anything. It was just that service bill of £177. And that's it. That's really all there is to report from the service. It went well. Very happy. They did keep it for a bit longer while they were investigating what they thought was a traction battery fault. But other than that, nothing major. I was quite relieved that it wasn't a traction battery fault, to be honest. Apologies for the abrupt change in scenery, but as I was editing this video, I realised that I'd forgotten one important topic, so I thought I better do a little clip discussing it, and this seemed the appropriate place to drop it in. And that was battery degradation. If you remember my first video, I discussed the battery degradation, and my batteries were at 94% state of health after my first year of ownership. And quite a few people, both in the comments there and privately and via other sort of forms of communication and social media, had suggested to me that they thought that was quite a high drop-off. And I replied generally to pretty much everybody that brought that up, that I've been told that the first year usually sees the most significant drop-off, and then after that it becomes much lower. So anyone that did see that will be no doubt eager to hear how my state of health has gone. Now, it was at 94% last year. Now, well, 6% is quite a significant drop, or so it feels to most people. Bear in mind that Jaguar did the software update as well, which gave me 8% more range. So in actual fact, after that first year, I was getting more miles out of the car per charge than I was when it was brand new. That's the first thing. But second thing, after my second year of ownership, how much had it gone down by? Drum roll, please. 1%. My battery state of health after 2 years is 93%. So the information I was given turns out to be totally accurate. Bigger drop off after the first year or during the first year, and then it tails off. And I mean, that's practically nothing. So a 1% reduction over last year sees my current state of health at 93%. Now, an interesting fact that I noticed as well, by the way, is that during the summer months, that state of health actually crept back up. And during the warmer months of the year, that 94% state of health was actually being reported as 96%. So that means that my current 93% in the summer is probably going to be closer to 95%. That's after 2 full years and cannot be knocked. Now, obviously, lower mileage last year, but it's still done 5,000 miles. So even allowing for double that, which would put it on a par with the first year, doesn't necessarily equate to double the degradation, by the way. But worst case scenario would be I'd be looking at 92% now. But all I can give you is the actual numbers, and it's 93%. So I'm very, very happy with that. Brilliant job by Jaguar and LG Chem on the battery pack so far. Touch wood. There's a wooden table here. And yeah, sorry for the jarring change of background, but I just thought it was important to drop that one in here. Back to our regularly scheduled programming. So yeah, anything new to report on the last 12 months of ownership? Not really. As I say, it's been more of the same, to be honest. I still love driving the car. It still puts a smile on my face pretty much every time I get into it. While it was in for that extended service, I was using a petrol car, and it felt like going back in time. Honestly, they are such they're just strange cars. They just feel antiquated now. They're noisy, they're sluggish. You put your foot down, you got to wait for the power curve to kick in for it to decide what gear it wants to be in. I mean, gears, honestly. So yeah, I'm still loving my electric experience. I'm loving the driving experience. The acceleration still blows me away every time I use it. Never fails to put a smile on my face. I love the silence, driving around silently and effortlessly gliding through my day never gets old. Absolutely love that. And again, going back into a petrol car for a week, it was just over a week, was just a stark reminder of how pleasant that is. The car itself, I mean, this interior, I absolutely love. It feels like a luxury car. You know, it's so comfortable to sit in. It's so nice to, you know, just the ambience, if you like, that you sort of absorb while you're sitting here just feels superb. I absolutely love that. Proper premium luxury interior. The build quality is superb. I mean, it's, you know, there's no creaks or groans or squeaks or rattles or anything like that. Everything's solid. So yeah, cannot fault Jag on the quality of the build, and the sheer luxury that you feel when you get into this car. Cannot emphasize enough just how nice a place this is to be. It was one of the reasons I bought the car, and it hasn't disappointed me. So yeah, I mean, really, again, I just love the car. It's also been, and I probably shouldn't say this, I have got some wood in here, so I'll touch it. There we go, my door panel. Yeah, touch wood. Reliability. I mean, other than that first failure in my, you know, again, if you watch my early videos or my 1 year summary video, you'll see something about that. But basically, it failed in the first year. I think I'd had it about a month, I think. There was a fault which killed the car. But since then, and in the last 12 months, just reliable. I just get in the car and go. And that's what you want, you know. So yeah, absolutely love the fact that it's just been a painless ownership experience. There's been no real dramas. That first fault was quite big, but Jaguar made it as painless as it could possibly be. They came and got me. I only waited 40 minutes for them to turn up. They took me to the dealer. They gave me a new car, and then I drove that around while they repaired mine. Really was painless, but it was a failure. Other than that, you know, it's been almost 2 years since then with nothing. Absolutely love this car. Did I mention that? Obviously, with it being, you know, with those being the things I like, there have to be some things I don't like. Again, they're few and far between, and partly some of that is just down to getting used to the car, you know. Some of the things that might bother you in the early days, you just don't notice once you've had the car for a while. And I'm struggling to think of things I don't like now. People talk about the efficiency. Would it be nice to be more efficient? Of course it would, but is it efficient enough? Yes, it is. My fuel bills are never any more than 20 quid a month. This last year, they've been significantly less than that. But I've never paid more than 20 quid for charging, really, in a month. You know, in a petrol car of this kind of level of performance, that would cost me, I calculated, to be £300 to £330 a month. And this is costing me £20. So yes, it could be more efficient, but it doesn't bother me. It's perfectly efficient enough. The range is good enough, which is really your primary concern. I'm very happy with that. Sorry, this is supposed to be things I don't like. See, I'm struggling. I mean, obviously the fault with the 360 is a bit of a bugbear at the moment. I don't like that. I hope they will get it fixed. And I don't like that they still haven't implemented a maximum state of charge when you're charging. You can't stop the car charging at 80%, say, which I like to do. My reasons for that, well, partly it's probably me being overcautious in terms of wanting to protect the batteries. Jaguar say it's absolutely fine to charge the car up to 100%, which is why they don't include the option to not do that. Most people, I think, do just charge it up to 100% when they're charging it up and don't worry about it. But the second reason I like to stop it at 80% is if you charge above 80%, especially in the winter, you will not get full regen when you start out on your journey. So you have to use the brakes. The brakes are obviously mechanical part. I like single pedal driving, you know, and to do that, you need full regen available. So to use full, proper single pedal driving, you really need to stop your charge at 80%, especially in the winter. In the summer, you can probably get away with about 88%, but in the winter, if you charge above 80%, chances are you won't get full regen. And I like that single pedal driving experience. So for those reasons, I like to stop my charging at 80%, and Jaguar don't allow that. Now, there's some third-party software solutions out there which do allow you to do that, but it would be nice just to have it built into the car. Be one less thing to have to think about, really, you know. I mean, there's a couple of great apps. There's one called Wattcat for Android and one called I-Pace for iOS, and they allow you to stop your charging at 80% or whatever number you choose. There's another third-party app that I'm testing out at the moment, which also does the same thing. I'll give you more use on that when I'm allowed to, but there are solutions out there, basically. But it would just be nice to have it all built into either into the car, into the touchscreen, or Jaguar's own app. But yeah, as I say, there are ways around it, but I would prefer them to have built it in. But really, that's about it for things I don't like. Everything else, yeah, it's great. It's a great car. I'm sorry for everybody that wants to see drama and buyer's remorse, but I can't help you there. It's just been a great ownership experience. A couple of minor glitches, but nothing detrimental. I mean, the car is so quiet. The windproofing is so good. In fact, let's go into that as an overview. And we'll go into sort of a general overview now of sort of final roundup, if you like. As I've said a couple of times, it's been a low mileage year, so you have to factor that into my experiences over the last 12 months. But there haven't been really any great issues apart from the ones I've said. That 360 camera is probably the biggest issue I've had. The air deflector falling off didn't really noticeably affect the performance. It probably, reduced the efficiency by 0.1% or something, I don't know. But it wasn't noticeable. So it wasn't a huge inconvenience. 360 camera, though, is probably the biggest bugbear. If they could get that fixed, that would be really nice. If you're watching Jaguar, that would be really nice. Still on the original brakes and tyres, apart from the one that was replaced, but that was physical damage and nothing to do with the car. But the tyres are holding up well, and bearing in mind the Pirelli P0s, that's impressive. The brakes, well, nothing's shown up on the service. They obviously checked them as part of the service. But as I say, I like to use single pedal driving, so I use the brakes as little as possible, to be honest. So they're wearing well. Tyres are wearing well, and that's a good sign, because a lot of people said, oh, those big heavy EVs, they'll go through the tyres really quickly because of the extra weight and so on. But I'm not finding that. I'm finding the tyres are wearing better than the same tyres, in my experience, on a petrol performance car. I don't know if it's to do with the electronic traction control and the fact that the car can very precisely control the torque to each wheel. Maybe that limits tyre slippage a bit more and reduces wear. I don't know, but certainly I've found that, I've had P0s on petrol cars in the past and found that they wear a lot more quickly than they have on this. So that's a really good sign and encouraging, and kind of gets a bit of a to all those people that say, oh, particulate emissions are bigger. I'm not finding that. Brake pads are lasting longer, tyres are lasting longer, and there's no particulates from the exhaust because it doesn't have one. So my personal experience is that the particulate matter emissions from this car have been less than they would be in a petrol car. And I've experienced similar quality and similar performance petrol cars in my life. with similar tyres with Pirelli P0s, and these ones have lasted better. So even taking the exhaust emissions out of the equation, the particulate emissions from the tyres and brakes, I would say, have been lower on this car. So all told, that's a really encouraging result and a really big plus for the car. Obviously, living in southern Scotland, my emissions are very low as well, because our carbon footprint of the grid here is always very low. In the last year, I monitor it quite regularly, and there's been many days where it's been 100% zero carbon, or 0% carbon is another way to put it. So there's been lots of times where you've been able to charge without producing any carbon in this area, which means the car is truly zero emission, to be honest, at that point. Obviously, you've got the manufacturing to offset, but when the daily usage is close to zero, you know, there's been other times, even when it's been above zero, for most of the year, it's averaged between 10 and 30 grams per kilowatt hour, which equates to somewhere in the region of 10 grams per mile from the car, which is way less than you'll get, you know, in any sort of petrol car with the same level of performance as this, or to be honest, even any petrol car at all. So that is really nice. You know, as I say, I do try to monitor that just to see how it's going. And I think the highest I've ever seen was close to three figures. I think the highest I ever saw was about 90 grams per kilowatt hour. May have tipped just over 100 at one point. I'm not completely sure on that, but not by much. So there you're talking 30, 35 grams per kilowatt hour, which is still tremendous. But as I say, for most of the year, this car's been below 5 grams per kilowatt, 5 grams of CO2 per mile, or carbon per mile, which, yeah, I think that's pretty impressive in all honesty. So the interior, again, this is partly down to Jaguar's build quality, but they've obviously chosen good quality materials as well. I was a bit concerned when I originally chose this light interior. They call it oyster. It's not quite white, it's just slightly off-white. I was a little bit nervous about choosing it, but it's held up amazingly well. I mean, you can see it here. Really is wearing very well. I wear jeans most of the time, and really it's very unstained. There was a slight jean marking on the side part of the seat at one point, but I used the just normal leather cleaner and it wiped right off. Now, I had this treated with the Diamond Bright treatment that Jaguar offers from new. I had it treated with that, so that may have helped, but anytime it does get slightly dirty or slightly marked, it wipes right off with a bit of a leather cleaner. So yeah, I'm very happy with that. I paid quite a lot of money, if you recall, to have paint protection film fitted to the whole car. It's a self-healing paint protection film, and I have to say that it's done a brilliant job. Other than that scratch, which was just too deep for the self-healing to work on, there's no scratches at all in the car. There is on the front, just at the just in front of the bonnet, there is a small stone chip which has actually damaged the paint protection film again beyond its abilities to self-heal. You can see that there. It's just a little one stone chip that's kind of pierced the film, but it hasn't, the film has done its job. It hasn't gone on to the paint, it's just damaged the film. So as long as I don't get another stone in exactly that same spot, I'll be fine. But at some point I'll probably get that bit of PPF renewed, but I might wait for a few more stone chips before I do that, because it's really not noticeable at the moment, that one tiny one. And the rest of the car really almost looks pretty much as good as the day I bought it, if I'm honest. When it's cleaned and polished, it looks brand new. So there we go. That is pretty much my summary of a second year of ownership of the I-Pace. For a brand new car, you know, that was one of the first run of these that was made for Jaguar. They don't make them, obviously. It's made by Magna Steyr in Austria. But for a brand new car with a brand new powertrain by a company that's never done an EV before, wow, they've done an amazing job. I mean, in many ways, in terms of reliability, build quality, and construction, you know, it's been more impressive than some companies that have been making EVs for years, I would have to say. You know, I've had so few problems with it. And any time there's been an issue, Jaguar have been really good. I'd say the 360 camera is still outstanding, so you know, that remains to be seen if they're as on the ball with that. But fingers crossed, so far they've been very good, so I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that they'll step up to the plate again on that one and find a solution for it. It's not a deal breaker, but it is quite an obvious thing. You know, you can see it when you're using the 360 camera. It's noticeable. It's not just something that, oh, I only know it because I'm some kind of perfectionist. So yeah, that's all there is on that one. Really, I can't think of anything much else to say, which is a good thing if you think about it. I like that this video is relatively low content, because if it was high content, it would almost certainly mean I'd had a lot of problems. So there we go. Very happy. Hope you're all having similar experiences with your I-Paces. If you are, let me know in the comments down below, and if you're not, please let me know in the comments down below as well. I'm sure there are people that are having problems, as there are with any car. Obviously I can only comment on my personal experiences, which have been really, really good, I have to say. Yeah, if you have liked the video, then do give me a thumbs up. That does help out the channel a lot. And if you're enjoying my content and want to see more about my I-Pace adventures, then click on subscribe. And then don't forget to click on the little bell icon so you get a notification anytime I upload a new video. If you do want to subscribe, you can of course do that right now by clicking my ugly little face over there. And don't forget to check out some of my other videos like this one up here, please. Till next time, this is Abu Dhabi Dude saying so long, take care, see you soon. Bye. Abu Dhabi Dude.